Welcome. In front of me is a Redmi A3, and today I will go over unboxing. I'll have a quick look at the device and its specs. So let's just get straight into it. Now we do need to grab a knife so you can cut through the little mini stickers. So I'm going to first mention the price of this device because it is obviously at a very low end, and this device comes at about $130 US. Now, I'm presuming that's without the tax, but I might be wrong. So this is basically primarily as budget as you can almost get. Now let's see what we get for that price. In terms of the display, we have a 6.71 inches display, which in terms of size, it's the typical like average at current times, I would say. Now the resolution though is a little bit below average, which is 720 by 1650 pixels, so it's basically a 720p resolution. It's also an LCD IPS display, but it does have a 90 Hz refresh rate, so you might have this nicer refresh rate and things might just feel a little bit smoother and nicer when scrolling through it. It has an 82.9% screen to body ratio, so we do have a pretty chunky little chin at the bottom right here, and the bezels in general are on a bit of a bigger size compared to some other modern devices. And even if you compare it to some phones from like several years back, if I, for instance, bring up my device, you can kind of see this is a old Mate 20 Pro. So you can see the bezels right here on a like 4-year-old device are still, I would say, better than what we have right here. Now, continuing on, we also have a 268 pixels per inch because of that 720p resolution, and the glass in front here is a Cornell Gorilla Glass 3. Now, unfortunately, there's no pre-applied screen protector to this phone, as some other Xiaomi devices primarily come with some plastic film already on it, but this one does not, so you might need to, or you might want to, buy some kind of tempered glass for it. Now, moving on into the cameras, at the back we have what looks to be a dual camera setup. Now, looks to is probably the best way to describe it, because the main sensor is an 8 megapixel wide, and then below that we have a garbage that's called auxiliary lens, which is basically as good as saying here's a middle finger camera that serves no purpose, which is 0.08 megapixels, so it's beyond useless. Now at the front we have our selfie, which is a 5 megapixel camera. Now both front and back, it can record videos at 1080p 30 frames, so that's the max it can do. Yeah. Now, continuing on into the internals, this device comes with a 5000 mAh battery, but in terms of charging speeds, it falls off the cliff with only 10 watt charging. So it's just abominable in general. It is being powered by a Helio G36 processor and comes anywhere between 64 gigabytes of storage and 3 gigs of RAM, all the way up to 128 and 6. That being said, I would probably recommend going with the highest end version, which is 128 gigs and 6 gigs of storage, as 64 gigabytes might be just not enough to even like run all the system along with some default apps that just need to be stored on the actual like system partition right here of the phone. As you're probably aware, most devices that have a SD tray, which I'm not even sure this one does, presume it does, but see, yep, it does. So even though you might be able to put in a SD card in here and set it so applications are being installed on that SD card, not every application will allow you to be stored on the SD card, in which case you would have to store it on the phone storage, and you might just have too many of those and run out of storage. So I just want to point that out for people that might be interested in this. Now, anything else to mention here? I don't think there is anything else. So, summing it up, we have a pretty budget build right here with a plastic frame, Gorilla Glass 3 front, plastic back. It does have this kind of leatherish look. It's totally plastic, so don't get fooled. We have pretty budget cameras, that is saying it very generously. And display here is also pretty budget. The only benefit of this display is the higher refresh rate. And that's about it. So the only redeeming quality of this phone is, I would say, the higher refresh rate display, but that's about it. And that being said, there are devices that will cost maybe like $50 more and offer you a significantly better value, which is something that I do urge you to maybe try to save up. If you only have like $130, but you don't need to get a device right away, I would urge you to just try to save up a little bit more and go for something that is closer to like $200 range. When it comes down to from like very low end to mid-range devices, the performance and specs do go a long way in that price range. They do increase quite substantially. Anywhere from like 500 up to 1,000, that's where you just don't see too much of an improvement, and it's some of the price in that jump is done to give you a more premium feeling device, but it's, for instance, not going to change much in terms of specifications. So for instance, Xiaomi Poco F5s or F5 or X6s are a pretty good example of this, where the build quality is on the lower end, but the internals are on the higher end. You get to pay like $600, and paying more, 1,000, just gives you a more premium feeling device, but not performing. And in terms of budget devices, going 50 higher in terms of price range will give you a just significantly better experience with the device, when the device just is much snappier and gives you additional benefits, like for instance either AMOLED display, higher refresh rate, higher resolution, faster charging, better cameras. These are all the specs up that you can get all at once by just, for instance, adding like $50 to $70 additionally to this kind of price. So I do urge to check that out over going in general with like very budget devices. But with that being said, hopefully you found this very helpful, and if you did, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.